Boom. And we were recording another Cougarland podcast with special guest Harlan Calhoun, who made the exception. We have tried to connect a bunch of times, but now we got you the day after Christmas. People pretend they're doing stuff. You know, they're just laying on the couch, eating high carbohydrate food, watching old things, waiting for a ball game. That's all that's going on.
Exactly.
So I'm glad
exactly.
you were there for this. So you were there from 82 to 84, as you just told me. And you bounced around a lot of high schools, but you remember Vicenza. That's where you spent a lot of time, huh?
Yep. So I went to 6 different high schools just because of what my dad did. But Vicenza was where I was the longest and made the most connections.
It's interesting. Only 2 years, but it seems like 2 lifetimes when you're there. Because it was you did a lot with the kids there. You went on school trips. You went on sports trips. You went on teen club events. You went on whatever's going on in Villaggio, right?
Yep.
Where did you live? Did you live in Villaggio or did you live off base?
No, we lived in Torrey.
Okay.
So lived out there. There was a smaller American community out there, and it's where I met Massimo Yoshida and Sean Smith and Rosanna Bonamago and that kind of group that lived out there in Torrey.
Okay. Yeah, I've talked to Rosanna. She's over in she's a nurse. She's over in Utah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the hugest crush on her, but I was scared to death of her brother, so I never talked to her.
Her brother's now the one of the coaches for the LA Rams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars for a while, and I was scared to death of him, so I never really talked to her.
Just look the other way. I don't see you. Oh, there was a lot of that. There was like, what will your dad think? Well, my dad's this, your dad's that, or well, you're in a different social club. It was just like we would all think this in our own heads. And then, to ask anybody out in Vicenza took a little bit of nerve, unless you live right across the street and there's that proximity. But just as you're about to ask somebody on a date, another guy already swooped in. It would happen all the time.
Right.
Normal. That's how it worked.
And I was a lot younger too. So, I was a senior in high school and I was 16, and most people didn't realize that. So I was like that young, I was very outgoing because, doing football and basketball, track. And then just, and I worked at the teen club. I worked at the commissary. I cut yards actually out in Torrey. So I met a lot of people and very active, but I was still that young and a late bloomer at that to begin with. So, but I'm a senior in high school at 16, and most people, your dad knew because he was like, if I could have you for another year or two, and I'm like, yeah, well, it's just I started school way too early.
Oh, so that's what happened, huh?
Yeah. So then with the girls situation, I went out, went out with Lori Barrymore for a while, Alyssa Van Thilo for a little bit. I had an Italian girlfriend out in Torrey, but for the most part, I was still that kind of shy late bloomer.
An Italian girlfriend is status, dude. They were so hard to go out with all that heavy Catholicism. Must have done something right, Yeah,
well, I was playing basketball. There was a church in Torrey, and I'd go there and play basketball when I first moved there. And so I made some Italian friends because I knew like no American friends. People were gone for the summers or whatnot. They'd come back to the States or gone elsewhere. So I started running around with a group of Italian guys. One of them had a sister that I ended up liking. And so I started hanging out with them before I started hanging out with any of the Americans because we lived out there in Torrey.
Wow. That's a unique story. That's a unique way to come into it all. I moved there when I was 5, and it didn't seem like anybody was around because it was summer, so everybody's dispersed, right?
Right.
So families are going home on leave or they're going on trips or whatever. And I was just a little tiny kid, and we're living off base downtown at the Continental Hotel. And that felt like no American English speaking television, no TV in your room. To have a TV in the room in Italy during the 70s and 80s, that was like a first class 5-star hotel would have a TV.
Right.
Because you needed a license. TVs required a license. Italians didn't get colored TVs a lot back then because they taxed you for having the luxury item.
Right.
Yeah. I remember we gave one of our TVs to our neighbors, and they were so excited because a color TV was like, giving somebody a Rolls Royce. It was just a trip because you pay that premium. just to see something in color. It was, so yeah, that was that. I remember that. But then you going to Torrey, I grew up with a lot with the Italians, so I spoke Italian and all that. Where were you coming from before you landed in Torrey?
So Fort Bragg.
Okay.
Yeah, so every career hop that my dad would end up making, we would end up back at Fort Bragg, and then he would be deployed somewhere else for like 6, 8, 10 months, and then we would get to go with him. And then, like say, Italy was the longest. So we came to the summer of '82, and then in '83, right after football, is when we left to go to Wiesbaden, and then I came back to graduate, and then graduated, and then went off to college, and but it was your dad was able to help me to come back to graduate and work it out with the two principals. And so I could actually, because that was the longest span I'd ever been anywhere for high school, was that summer of '82 through football season. So it was October, November, and then I moved there. But so, we talked about it with the experience with your dad, how your dad is, your dad, but how we saw your dad. So your dad was, and I probably told you this before, but your dad was probably one of the main influencers in my life at a young age, besides my parents, and because moving around. But so I never had a coach that worked out with us that would go run, doing sit-ups and push-ups. So I thought that was cool. And then just getting in, and you'd be in his class and say, hey, look, I'm looking at these plays. What do you think about this? And so one day he's like, what are you going to do after high school? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe join the military or something. And he was like, I think you may need to go to college. You look like you're college material. So he took me to the counselor and said, hey, we need to get him lined up to take the SATs and whatever else. And I'm like, I didn't even know what the SAT was, because I was that kid who was just doing my own thing. So he was very instrumental in me deciding, hey, maybe I should go to college and figure this out. And he was always just imparting wisdom. And then when it became on the basketball, it was really one of my first times of really doing organized basketball. I played football, baseball, and I think it's where your dad and I kind of connected on baseball talk, because he was a phenomenal baseball player that a lot of the kids didn't know. That he's in the Cape Cod League and doing all this stuff, and he never really bragged about it, but he talked about it. So we would have a lot of times, and there was a time when I was working at the teen club, and I would get down to the teen club, and I'd go over to the base and play to the base gym, and I would play in this little pickup game. It seemed like every other day, these group of young GIs. I remember your dad was coming through. I still remember he's eating an ice cream cone, and he's coming through the gym, and he stops, and he's watching me play, and he sits down, and we finished. And I don't remember if we won or lost or whatever. And he said, why don't you play like that for me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, you're crashing the boards, you're hitting, you're shooting jumpers, you're taking guys to the basket. And I was like, well, I said it because I think when I'm playing, this is the play. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do this. And I come here, and he goes, forget that. This is what I want. I was like, cool. He's like, and so he said, so you're going to play football, and we're going to do this basketball. And then but he started getting me thinking of how to do organized sports that are so focusing on, and it was that summer of stop focusing on the play and just play your game. And then he goes, I'll tell you if you're screwing up. So that really helped me. And then I went to Wiesbaden and was able to do halfway decent. And then I ended up playing in college. So it all started with your dad. If he wouldn't have had those kind of conversations and doing those things, who knows where my career and life would have been a lot different. He was a major, major influence on my life.
That's very interesting. I didn't know the depth of it. And that's deep. That's deeper than I could imagine. It's like definitely, especially I think of a kid who, like, how many places were you stationed before you got there? It's like it's almost like growing up as a child actor. You're on a new set. You're on a new set. You're on a new movie. You're never really bond with the kids at one school. You're being bounced. You go to Hollywood High for a week and a half, a year, and then you're getting school in a trailer, and then you're doing a movie in Arkansas. I mean, it's kind of like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, where were you born originally?
I was born at Fort Bragg.
Okay.
So was born there, and then we went to Germany a couple times, Bad Tolz, Mainz. We were in Kentucky, Georgia, and Italy.
What did your dad do in the Army?
So he had a bunch of different things. So his longest part of his career, he was with 5th Special Forces Group.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was within military intelligence. So when the general in Italy got kidnapped in '82, he came there and spent some time there and was there until his next assignment. And again, his normal assignments, like most military people, it was like a 3-year stint. You go here for 3 years, you go here for 3 years. Most of his were a year and a half, 2 years, but sometimes it was 8 months. And it was probably when I was in junior high, he was looking at getting out of Special Forces and going more of the military intelligence route, because he's like, his kids are growing up. So if his assignments were short term, it wasn't. But if there's something that, hey, we've got something going on and we want you to be over here in this area for 6, 8 to 10 months, then he could bring us with him.
So he probably was bringing like PSD, kind of like the initial beginning of all that, like they do with Blackwater. You know, it's like the private security detail, you know, professional bodyguarding, bringing that element, not just regular standing watch, but the next element up to
it was
kind of fortifying and preventative measures as to what had happened when they did, you know, kidnap the general, which happened out in Verona, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed, because I lived there, when that happened, the first thing that happened is they started getting bulletproof cars. They started getting this bulletproof BMW that was the general's car, and the driver had to be specially trained for evasive maneuvers and stuff like that. And that wasn't like that before. And then later on in Germany, some general did have a bomb shot at him by a Bader-Meinhof or something like that. It flipped the car over, but he survived just fine. It's almost like he took a RPG to the car.
Yep.
Because they hardened it up.
But yeah, he started his career with the 101st Airborne, then he went to the 82nd Airborne, then he went to 5th Special Forces Group, and then he was on something that was with 5th and 7th. Then he was with what they call the unit for a period of time.
I know what the unit is. Yeah.
Okay, so he was with them for quite some time, and then came to Wiesbaden. I mean, for Vicenza. It was with the 509th, but he was still attached to whatever he was attached to. I don't know, something through the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center, because that's where when he came back to Fort Bragg, that's where he always worked out. They called it the Little White House, which you're probably familiar with.
Yeah. Dad was tier 1. Your dad was the badass. That's pretty cool, dude. Yeah.
In his younger days, he probably was. I mean, it was kind of same how, like you would say, there was guys that worked with my dad would come up and say that. I was like, no, that's my dad. Are you kidding me?
Right,
no.
right. There were soldiers coming up to you, getting coached by your dad how to up their military game or their professional aspect.
Right.
That makes sense.
It probably was in high school, and when it came, there was a couple guys like, man, have you ever, went around with your dad? I'm like, no, it's my dad. He pops in, he pops out, he's gone. It's like, man. And as I got older and going to, like, they have like the Green Beret Club there at Fort Bragg and different stuff, guys would come in and it's like, oh, that's your dad? It's like, man, has he ever taught you anything? I'm like, no, he ain't taught me nothing.
Are you a full-blown ninja or what? No.
Right. Anyway, so that was him, but that's why we bounced around so much.
Well, it's interesting. I think did you go to the football trip in Sigonella?
I did.
Okay, remember that time that Massimo got caught up in some vacuum in the ocean there? Some kind of little whirlpool was sucking him.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. You were talking about that the other day. Absolutely.
I was there. Yeah, I was playing on that team with you. So I was class 86. I was 2 years younger, but I went on that trip. I was probably freshman football or something. And we're out there swimming. I think Freddie Parkins and another guy had to grab him because an undertow had got him and he was stuck right there in place. So they had to grab him by his shoulder. They could swim next to him, and we pulled him out. And I just remember it was beautiful water, great waves right off the, Sicilian Ocean there, off the beach. But I do remember how dirty that beach was. Heroin needles sticking up and stuff. It was like going through a landmine field to just get to a swim. But it was great, We won that game. We had a great success because they never had a really big team there. That's where we could go. Naples was always the big team against us. They were like,
right, absolutely.
They'd get a bigger batch of hardier kids or something, But it's interesting. So you went on to play ball in college. Not a lot of people did, because it was a very eclectic mix. Like, we were never the program per se, like Texas Friday night, Friday night
right.
football. We were never you better win, Johnny. And the kids are lifting weights 8 months out of the year or whatever, you know, like it's a hardcore, like professional level. It's
Yeah,
almost
I went to, so one was that conversation that your dad had, and then when I went to Wiesbaden, I played basketball at Wiesbaden, and the coach there was really, we'll say, connected on the college side,
Mhm.
which that's what really helped me there. So that was Coach Ron Smith was his name, but yeah, it was your dad just getting me how to think about playing backyard ball basically, and translate that to because my junior year, I mean, you know, I didn't play much at all because I was so worried. Okay, if this play, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to cut here. I was thinking more than doing. And your dad was the one that's like, look, if you could do this on a regular basis, there's no telling what you could become. And so it really helped.
That's what you need sometimes. And especially, like, see, the best part is your 50% of that equation is that you knew who you were talking to and what kind of information you were getting. You're getting it from a guy that had a full ride scholarship to BU, and my dad was scouted by the Red Sox and stuff like that. So he knew what it was like to get to that level of
Right,
performance.
absolutely.
But any other kid is like, well, we're just visiting, and you're just a coach and you're wearing mismatching sweatpants. I don't know. You're wearing the yellow top with the red pants today. Cool,
Yeah.
coach. Get the
Hey,
whistle.
but it
Though.
worked. He could pull it off.
Yeah, that was his thing. But you see, that there's a great book. Because I was in business most of my life, and it was Think and Grow Rich. And there's a point in there that says to know the value of something. And I know we're going off on philosophical business, but anybody listening, you're going to learn something anyways. So if you and I are sitting at a table, there's a bunch of dusty coins on it, and I'm like, get those dirty coins out of there. Let's clean the table. You go, no. You take a look like, oh, that's a 1885 nickel. That's worth $90,000. So you knew the value to look at the opportunity that other
Right.
people might look at as an annoyance, right? And then know the value of a relationship or know the value of information and who's imparting it to you, like a mentor. You know,
Right.
you're gonna just go over your head. You're like, there's a lot of people that'll give you the story. I should have listened to that guy, and I ended up in working at Chippendales for 20 years, just being a dancer. You know.
Hey, but they're probably having a lot of fun.
that's the life, right? So did you just come back and lock down in North Carolina? I mean, I'm new here, of course. I'm in your town. You know?
Yeah, no. So yeah, after college, I went to work for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. So I did that for a period of time, and through there was a connection that I made, and then I did some stuff with the State Department. I coordinated democracy exchanges in Poland, Russia. I worked on terrorism projects in Israel, and then came back to North Carolina. I got divorced, and so then, like, you know, unlike my family, how my dad was able to bring us, I couldn't. So got divorced. My son and his mother wanted staying in North Carolina. So then I left there and came to work for, at the time it was Allied Security, now Allied Universal Security. So was in Charlotte, and then they moved me to South Carolina, and then I came back to Charlotte, and now more on a North American platform. But I just got to be near a major airport, and so that's why we stayed in North Carolina. Plus, I got this weird accent, so this is probably where I need to be.
Hey, you go to Boston, like, what? Pack the canyon, you know?
Yeah, because even in high school, they used to say, "Where are you from? You got a cow? You a cowboy? Where's your horse?"
You kind of epitomize the North Carolinian, the basketball playing guy with the high and tight haircut, squared away, good manners. That's a North Carolinian type of guy, you know?
Well, this haircut came because of COVID. Because in North Carolina, the governor shut down, like a lot of places, shut down everything. And then, so where I get my haircut, it's like, yeah, we may be out of work for 2-3 months. I'm like, well, crap, let's go with a high and tight. And then took it off. And then I just kept it. But before, it was nowhere like this. But
oh, dude, I'm just growing the bouffant 80s hair, man. I don't even care. I could go to the barber. There's really not that many cases of COVID out here on the OBX. There was 20. I'm like,
right.
Big deal. It's pretty damn safe here. It's one of the few places, but I'm not advertising it, doing video vlogs. This is why I moved here from California.
Right.
Move here too, then I'll bring all the people over here and all that drama over here. I'm like, nope, not going to tell you. I'll let the Texans advertise. Let
There
them
you go.
absorb all the Elon Musk and his gang. You know, I'll leave North Carolina. I'll show it some respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're close to a lot of people. I mean, I sent you Norman Whippy. Did you know Norman?
I did not know him, but I saw that because I think he graduated like 2 years before I got there. He graduated in '82, and I came that summer.
Okay, yeah. Norman was cool. I was in the Boy Scouts with him. He was Special Forces.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that affiliation there. How about Barry Pinicky? Did you know him?
I did know him.
Yeah.
I didn't know him well, but I knew him. I really hung around the groups. I had like several different groups that I hung out with. So I hung out with Teddy Spittle and I guess it's Jim now Greenwell, the Lou and James Craig. Lou had already graduated, but James, I hung out with him a lot because, we played football and then basketball. But just me, him, and his brother hung out a lot. Ron Tamor.
He's up in New Jersey.
Craig is?
Yeah.
Okay. I did not know that.
Had him on a podcast, but I couldn't air it, so we'll have to redo that one.
Oh, okay.
He had a frozen face, so he's like, the whole time. It was just funny. Like, dude, your video's not moving. And everybody was like, look at the frozen guy over there. And it was
awesome. And then I hung out with Dino, Andre Davis, some Javier, Charlie Duffy. I think I said Ron Tamora. Shaq, he lived out there in Quinton, or in Torrey. I think his real name was Lloyd Quinton or something like that. I forgot his real name.
Shaft. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we called him, Shaft. Now he's changed to Shafiq or something, but yeah.
Yeah. So those were the people that I mainly hung out with.
My friend Kevin Merritt lived out there too. You might have known him.
I might remember the name. I don't remember him though.
Okay. That's how it is though. But it's like we could play this game with anybody, like some form of mental torture. It just goes on forever. So you told me where you were. I think a couple of Vicenza Cougars live near you.
Yeah, so I live in Charlotte, right outside of Charlotte, a little town called Harrisburg.
Okay, do you know where Cornelius is?
Yep, absolutely.
That's where Barry is.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's probably about 20 minutes from me.
Well, then we'll all meet up soon, just before New Year's, because I'm going to take my wife on a trip out there.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so we'll be out there. I'm going to tell Barry. He doesn't even know yet. And, Barry's awesome. He's been there. I knew him forever. And he was always a gentleman, always a good guy. He played ball. He was in the Boy Scouts with me. And it's like when you talk about what prepared you for life, I take it back to the Boy Scouts, as silly as it sounds. That was like miniature Army training. And then you're being trained. Your Boy Scout masters are Army guys, so you're getting the double layers, right?
Right.
But that's why I joined the Navy, because it was too much training. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it's like you probably felt like, well, I knew them, and no, I may never talk to them. And it's like my whole thing is to encourage people to reconnect, because a lot of people let it go. What you do have in common with all of them, whether they were super close or not, you can say, remember downtown, remember Monteberico, remember that back road by Villaggio and so-and-so's house, or the teen club, or the post gym, or Foodland, or all these references.
Yeah.
We all have them, right? And we were not so jacked on social media. It was either playing sports, taking a trip somewhere, going to someone's house, like VHS tapes. Oh, they got a movie. We've got a new movie. We're going over to so-and-so's house. He's got Animal House, That's what it was like. But the age thing, that's a trip. I mean, how do you think that affected you graduating so early? It was like, geez, I still got, 5 more years before I can go to a bar.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting because again, most people didn't know it because it's when you're a junior or you're a senior. Your dad knew it. But yeah, it was just like if I could have had like another year or 2 years of sports, how much better could I have been?
Right.
To be better developed. And then again, just the social side. I mean, like again, I went out and
you're caught between floors, kind of, right?
Right. So yeah. So, but I think it also helped me to engage with a lot of different people. So that's why I didn't just run like around with one group. I mean, primarily, it was Teddy Spittle and or when I first got there, Massimo Yoshida and
Did you know Derek Gould too?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's really popular in the podcast world.
Okay.
Yeah. He's kind of like the ex-Fonzie of Vicenza, but I've been having fun poking fun at him, dude. I've made so many crazy videos and stuff I'll show you afterwards. I got a hold of this software that can turn people into like singing elves and crazy stuff. I put up a thing of him on Tiger Beat magazine with his hair all the way up to here.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I like to josh people, but it's to engage a conversation. I mean, if I get 99 views, 70 views on one of these, that's cool. That's 70 people that I know that know you, that know me, that know each other. That
Right.
actually watch. I don't care if it's 1 million views. It's never been the goal of this. I have another channel that gets 1 million view videos, and it's not people I know, and it doesn't matter.
Well, it's so small. I mean, I think there was like 44 people in our graduating class, and I could be off, but so it's so small to getting 70, 80 views. I mean, that's huge compared to the size of our school. Because I mean, how many schools that have a yearbook in it 7th grade through 12th grade?
Right.
So it's pretty awesome. But just that whole experience of just being over there, because one of the other things, and again, going back to your dad, I remember we were playing basketball in Naples, and we're sitting outside of the Leaning Tower Pizza, and we're having ice cream because your dad loved ice cream. And we're sitting there having ice cream.
You must have been playing basketball in Livorno because that's where the Leaning Tower Pizza is.
Yeah. Well, we were playing in Naples, but we stopped in Livorno.
Oh, cool.
Camp Darby is where we were playing. So anyway, we were there, and then one thing your dad said is we're sitting there, and I'm sitting next to him, and he goes, "What do you see around?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, you can point out the Americans because of the way they dress, but what do you notice about them?" I'm like, "I don't know." He goes, "They're all old." He goes, "You're young, and you're getting to experience something that people wait a whole lifetime to do, so you need to enjoy this and not just be some stupid kid." And so I'm like, okay, well, that's great advice. So some stupid kid, what did I just do that he called me stupid?
Did I eat the ice cream backwards? No, I'm kidding.
Right. But so it was kind of cool. So after that time, I really took advantage of it because there was some of us because I lived out in Torrey, some of the Italian friends that I'd have, we'd catch the train and go into Venice. And and I forgot there was a nightclub that opened. It was in 1983, and I remember it. But one of the Italian guys I hung out with, his sister was a bartender. So, and then I was 15, getting ready to turn 16. But we would catch the train and go in there, and then his sister would hook us up with drinks and everything, and then we would crash at somebody's house we didn't even know. And so, just those kind of experiences of being over there, and that kind of changed your kind of whole outlook of living in the same town your entire life. And then again, I had the weird experience of 6 different high schools. So it was hard to make those connections, but when you did, you just took it and said, okay, this is my period of time and I'm going to enjoy it while I can.
I heard another podcast, the name slips my mind. I think it was my brother's era. One of the gals was saying something like, yeah, so I come back, I'm in college, and the kids are drinking like rock gut malt liquor bull. And she's like, I'll have an amaretto, the Serrano, and yeah, maybe some of this. And they're like, man, you fancy. Because like you get this the European, je ne sais quoi, that little, well, what's this?
Right.
So you get that essence, and then you have this experience of like a wealthy person, even though it wasn't about money, but it's
right.
Wealthy people come to Europe to do what you already did. So
right.
I'd go back to California and be in a fancy area where it's town Los Gatos that I used to live in. And actually Greenwell used to live there too. So we're over there. We lived down the street from each other, didn't even know it, living in California. That's how crazy.
Oh, wow.
Now he's back in Virginia. So yeah, we probably crossed each other in the grocery store 20 times. No idea. But that's the funniest thing. So you hear people, yes, we went to Venezia and we saw the frescoes and and I'm like, yeah, we used to go to Venice all the time, dude. It was like going to 7-Eleven. It's
Right.
the Italians come back. Oh, then we go to America. I see the Slurpee machine. I can get 20 of them for $1. And then we go to Peter's house and watch 200 TV channels. Amazing. It's not like that, you know. That era is gone. For a while, America had more media. We have fast food. We had all this stuff. It's all gone over to the, you know, European world now.
Yeah, I was back over there probably 2 years ago. It was in Verona, Milan, went to Venice and all those areas. Couldn't get onto the base, but went through Vicenza. Yeah, it's all become Americanized over there now.
Pizza kebab.
I guess.
Pizza kebab. What's that? It's
Yeah.
Middle Eastern Italia. It's mixed. A Greek pizza. What? I mean, well, because Italy is becoming like the Miami, like people running from Cuba. They're running from Syria, from Africa. They're fleeing, and they found a way to just get on a barge and hope they get to Sicily, and then get to Italy, and then get to Germany or Sweden for more
Right.
universal life income and a better quality of life. I mean, in one way, how can you blame anybody for wanting to do that? They're human beings. When you see like people invading on your party, you're like, but it's, you know, it is what it is. So Italy is not so Italian anymore. It's multinational. You'll go to Venice and you'll go to the souvenir shop, and it's not Maria anymore. It's Inderjit Singh. You know, it's like an Indian guy, or it's a Chinese person, or somebody from Brazil. You never know.
Right.
So it's very
I loved
bizarre.
it over there. I mean, I took advantage, you know, playing the sports, living out in Torrey. I'd ride my bike to the ride and gun club and go fishing or go target shooting. And it just a great experience.
So you got it while you were there, but then you had my dad pounce on you. So that worked out good.
Now, again, without his influence, there's no telling where I would be today. He was like, no, I think you need to go to school. And I forgot the guidance counselors. And he was like, yeah, I think we need to line this guy up and start a different career track for him, because he's not sure what he wants to do. And I mean, it's just like, okay, you need to take the PSAT, the SAT. And I mean, it just really started pushing me. And he was just always had some kind of like say-in or nugget or, but it really started after that time with him walking through the basketball gym. It was that summer between the junior and senior year. And again, he was sitting there eating that ice cream, and he got done. And after that, he was just always, what are you doing? What's next? What are you doing? What's next? And
strategist.
He's a great guy.
A coach is a strategist.
Yeah.
And he also was a history teacher, but he stopped that after and just relied on the PE teacher thing. He was doing both. He's like, well, you can't be in two classes at the same time. It kind of overlapped or whatever. But anybody that loves history likes to study the battles of old. And that's why they make coaches, because they're strategists, you know?
Well, he was good. I mean, the proof was in the pudding. He takes over the football team, and they start winning. The basketball starts winning, and track. I mean, it's just anything that he touched, he knew. I always said your dad always taught you the why, not just the how.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, had more. If I knew the why, not just the how, but then he also knew the players. Because I remember one time I don't remember what Teddy did, because, I mean, you know, Teddy was great. But he grabbed Teddy's face mask, and he pulled it down, and he was yelling at Teddy. And I looked at your dad, and I'd never seen that. I was like, Coach, that was a little rough. And he goes, if I talk to Teddy the way that I talk to you, Teddy won't think I'm serious. And if I talk to you the way that I talk to Teddy, you're going to say, screw this, I don't have to put up with it. He goes, you got to know how to motivate the people, know your people, and how to motivate them at the right time. Because he would put his hand around, especially on football, he'd put his hand around, it's like, son, do you want to ride the pine, or do you want to play? I went, got it, Coach Sears, I got it. It's time to have my game up.
Right.
But so that was the first coach again, and I'd played sports since I was little, mainly baseball. But it was the first time that, I mean, it was just that interaction I had never had with a coach. But no matter the sport, he knew it, but he knew how to motivate the players to get the most out of them. Because even in hindsight now looking, I'm like, you know, he could have been a Division I coach and excelled from my standpoint, because he knew how to motivate the players and get the most out of them.
Well, he got offered to coach the Canadian Olympic basketball team. and because they were coming through and they met with them and he talked with them because what they did before they played in the Olympics, they were coming through Italy playing the Italians. And the Italians would do 3-step travel, full elbows to the face. You know what I mean? They were rock and sock them like that wasn't a foul. Anything to beat the Americans anywhere you went. You know what I mean? So these guys had huge fat lips and black eyes and stuff. So my dad helped him out, and then he started talking with them, and they were like, wow, you should come and work for us. But my dad's like, that's a 2-year thing. I'm in it for the long haul. Right. So like when my dad was in BU, the Red Sox were offering him like AA ball. And he goes, you're looking for Mickey Mantle. I'm only 5'9". I'm not going to, I'll get stuck on this team. I might hit some good stuff, tune up your guys. But ultimately, I have a full ride for a master's degree at Boston University. It's expensive school. It's like, I'm going to ride this out. If that happens, that happens. So the same thing, like looking at his government career, that's how he felt about the Olympic team. He's like, I'm going to stay here and get my retirement.
Right. Well, he did good, but he still excelled in the Cape Cod League because after he talked about that, I started looking, and then it was harder because you didn't have the internet today that now you could come up. But he was well known, well respected in the Cape Cod League back in the day. I mean, I forgot the records, but I mean, like stolen bases and on base percentage. Yeah. I mean, he was rocking that in that Cape Cod League. Even today, I mean, it's mostly, college kids or guys that are looking at moving in, and he was, a shining star there. So, I mean,
same in Boston. I mean, I'm not trying to brag too much, but it is what it is. It's his life. I mean, like he played on a semi-pro team, and they had more fans than the Red Sox in Boston. They had more people show up for their games than the Red Sox, and that's just because they had the charisma, the way they played. It wasn't about getting accepted to the teams like, here's the raw deal. So the parks would just get filled with people just all the way out into the dripping off the sidewalks. So, we'd come home in the summer, my brother and I, we go to my grandparents' house, and we'd look under the porch. There's like 500 trophies stacked all over, just thrown under there. Some were his brothers because they ran and they played some sports too, but a lot of it mostly was his. And so he had that team. He was a coach on that team, and they won like 6 years in a row all the time. So then he used to run the Ted Williams baseball camp. He worked for Ted Williams. So, and he coached the USMC, the United States Marine Corps, captain, coach, and player for the United States Marines. So just to show you, like, the baseball was really deep. We get to Italy, there's no baseball. He never talked about it. It's like, yeah. And it didn't matter. And I guess in some ways, unless you really get to know him and you were in that sport, he'd tell you about it. But I talked to Michelle Flaherty's mom, who I saw Michelle Flaherty over on California, and they were Boston Irish. So I thought they were my relatives when I met them when I was 5. They look like my aunt. She talked like my aunt from Dorchester. That kind of Medford, Mass. Like talk like that. I'm like, that must be my relatives. I'm 5 years old. But I saw her recently, and she was like, that's just the typical Irishmen. They're humble, low self-esteem. They don't see themselves that way. They don't brag about it that way.
Right.
I'd be the opposite, but I'd have an Instagram. Here, I hit another ball. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Right. It's just, I'm joking. But you know what I'm saying? So that made it a big influence. So you get that launch, and you were just off and rocking, and you played mainly focused on sports, worked on your game, and just carried that through. Now, who have you seen since Vicenza?
So I've seen Teddy Spittle a couple times. So if I've been up in D.C., it's been a few years, but we connected a couple times. Massimo Yoshida, saw him last. He's down in Dallas. Saw him, I guess it was earlier this year before the whole COVID mess, give or take. And that's the only people that I've seen. I've talked to a few people, but haven't seen anybody. And then it's just like every time that there was a reunion coming up, I already had a trip that I was planning. I was either, out of the country or somewhere else that I wasn't able to make it. And one was close. It was Charleston, and it's about 4 hours from here. But I was already committed somewhere.
There was one we were supposed to have at Pinehurst, but I think COVID killed that one.
Okay, yeah. So Pinehurst is definitely close. So I've talked to a few people. The only people that I've actually seen in person though has been Teddy and then Massimo.
Teddy is a ball hog. He meets everybody.
Yeah.
He's the
Well, that was one of
ambassador.
the
He's the ambassador until he's definitely the ambassador. I'm not trying to steal his thunder. He's done a great job at keeping a lot of people connected and where they are and what's going on. And it's good to have that anchor, you know, as you grow
Yeah.
older, to reference your beginning of your operating system was being programmed, your foundation of who you are. And you want to double check it sometimes. You got to talk to
Yeah, so he was the first one to reach out, and it was so funny because he's like, "Do you know how many Harlan Calhouns there are?" And I'm like, and he goes in like in Kentucky. He said I would research and I'd get a phone number, and it's like, "Yeah, I'd like to speak to Harlan." And it's like, "Well, he's not here right now." And he goes, "Well, I don't know if I have the right guy, but you know, I went to school with him in Italy." He's like, "Oh, my husband's never been out of this county." So
That's awesome.
So he said he had to put on a real hard effort. And then it was about that time, I think your dad had just gotten really bad sick. It was about that time that he was able to reach out, and then they were going up to see your dad. And then I think I was leaving to go out of the country, so I wasn't able to go up there. But it was an email that your dad had that sent us, and I had a hard drive crash, so I missed having that. But your dad sent an email right before he left, and it was to, you know, the Teddy, me. There was like 20, 25 of us, and he called us like from the replacements, from the movie Replacements, and how we connected with him and what it meant. And Teddy was one that kind of coordinated and made it all that happen. So he has been that anchor till you've been able to do this here and put faces to his name and take it to the next level.
Well, for me, I've seen like, you know, I saw my parents get older and people are waiting for someone to pick up the phone and call you. And people get very passive. They get weird about communication. They get jacked in. And I'm like, I'm an ex-sales guy. I can cold call you and make you buy what I'm selling if I want to. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter. You ain't getting away. If you're watching this and think that you're not coming on the podcast, I'm sorry. But you're going to have to sign here, press hard. There's 3 copies. You know, it's just how it is. And so rejection bounces off me that way. This is not about my ego. This is about finishing the mission. When I put my mind to something, I have to finish it. So I want to reconnect everybody, get everybody's archive. There's a TV show that's on HBO about some kid growing up in Italy, supposed to parallel our experience, but it's really nothing like us because we were in the 80s. This is in modern times.
Right.
Things have changed a lot. I mean, there's some things that are familiar, makes you think a little bit. It's kind of nice. You know, it's just different though. Times have changed. Times have changed so much. I look at our time, pre-internet, pre-cell phone, figuring it out on our own. You making friends with the Italians, me making friends with the Italians, you know, all these different things, you know, making those moves. And that was,
right.
It was different. You know, we grew up when, you know, the cars were a lot slower, but people drove them like race cars. And if you had a moped or a bicycle, you could get to post. And whether you're hanging at the Bellagio pool or the base gym or whatever you were doing, there was always something to do. You'd look at like those old pictures where the BMX bikes are stacked up in front of a house. You knew where everybody was hanging out.
Exactly.
Right? That's amazing. So you traveled to all these places since, and it's weird, but we are us, the people that were there at the experience. I find that to be the richest part. If you go back to Vicenza, it's just the buildings.
Exactly.
But when you connect the people, you connect the memories, the cerebral cortex, and then we all go back in a VR kind of experience, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So which episode, you've seen a few episodes I sent you, right?
Yeah, I've seen the Ratcliffe brothers, and actually when I saw the Ratcliffe brothers, I was like, you know, I think I might have seen Paul in an airport one day, walked right by him, because I saw the podcast. I was like, I think I just saw it, because when I was in the Phoenix airport, I think it was Phoenix, and for something to hit me, I was like, that almost looks like one of the Ratcliffe brothers.
It was.
And then when I saw your podcast, I'm like, sure enough, he's sitting there at his house and he's having wine. I'm like, that was him. So then it started making me think, because I do, with what I do, I travel a lot. It's like, how many other people that I've probably passed because I don't look like the same skinny dorky guy. I'm still dorky, but then I was in
Facially,
high
you
school.
looked up. I'd recognize you. I'd recognize you. Yeah.
Well, as you know, I had that shoulder blade surgery, so I've put on about 15, 20 pounds I got to lose. But
All in the guns, biceps, right on.
yeah.
Good job, dude.
But I started wondering how many people that I've passed that, just that connection. But this here, just it brought up a lot of, because, you left the high school and then the college, and, I still got a lot of friends that I went to college with. But, and Teddy made that connection. But this here has really helped. It's like, wow, this is where this person's at now and what they're doing. And, it's been great.
Oh,
So
it's a launching pad. I wanted to know, we were all on equal footing. Some people went out and did tremendously financially. Some people have, not that they don't need to be wealthy, but they have a happy life. They're happy. They survived. Yeah. Life was boot camp. Life is tough, man. It's not always easy. You may get divorced. You may go bankrupt. You may have a car wreck. You may have a lot of different things happen to you. But if you survive and you keep going and you maintain that happy spirit and you reconnect with everybody you went to school with, that matters. Because, I was on that trip, but I was on that trip with you, with Massimo out there, Parkins, Mark and Freddie Parkins. We were down in Sigonella, sleeping in the gym.
Slept in the gym. Forgot about that. That's
right. You could go get beers out of the vending machine, which we did. I mean, that was that kind of stuff. You didn't have to, find some GI, buy you a case of beer.
Well, a lot of times you had what was his name? Mike Crenshaw. He usually had a little bag that had Heineken in it. He always said he would be in the back of the bus and have the bag with Heineken's in it. I'm like, where'd you get that? He's like, got a connection.
Yeah, I used to work as a lifeguard. I don't know if I said this on the podcast before, but there was a NCOIC, non-commissioned officer in charge.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to be overlooking us lifeguards at the Bellagio pool. And I'd grab his hat with the said NCOIC and I'd put on his Ray-Bans and I'd walk in. How you doing, Susie? Let me get a couple of 12 packs, just having a little lunch refreshment. And I'd go in there and there was a food land and she never carded me. She thought I was the sergeant that ran the swimming pool. I was probably like 15.
Awesome.
I was 15. Yeah. It was entertaining. So we would just buy beer and just take it to our office. We just had pool party after pool party. Nothing got better than that. That was better.
But from that little school, I say little just because of the size of it, compare it to Naples.
If 10 years of average graduating class, let's just say 48, up or down, times 10 is 480 people. But go on. That's the number, right?
Yeah. So, but from that little school, like you say, everybody's in different spots in their life, but you've got a lot of people that ended up like successful military careers, and the Ratcliffes are doing well, and Coley. I mean, Teddy Spittle, James, the CEO. I mean, that little school has produced a lot of people that's been very successful in what they wanted to do and become in their lives. It's pretty impressive. And, and I look at what was the teacher's name? Mr. Solomon. I remember walking in, I was coming in, I had to turn something in, and he's sitting there, has got 3 Dog Night rock in, and they really connected with the students. I think it's really helped us for this little small school, for people to look at where they've come from to where they're at now. It produced a lot of people that's very successful.
I think so. I think people were above average intelligence. And if you weren't, you got it through osmosis.
Right.
And it upped your game. And it's because I was explaining this to somebody and he was kind of like, I haven't had him on the podcast, but anyways, he's trying to downplay, well, kids in the States had it good too. I go, you don't have what we had there. I am telling you, I have analyzed, I'm analytical as hell. I've compared the statistics. 350 million Americans, let's say that America only had 280 million population back then. There's only 40 of you in that graduating class in the universe.
Right.
Okay, that went and had this unique experience. So 40 of you were on that movie set, were in that television series called the Vicenza Cougars. So that's for your graduating class. Compared to the 10 million people. No, that was not 10 million. Yeah, let's say there's 10 million high school kids at the time. you guys are not even a percentage of a percentage. So
Right.
your experience is so unique. And when you bring it back to the States and you tell the kids how you were at the Oktoberfest or on the Leaning Tower of Pisa eating an ice cream in your, whatever, Quicksilver shirt and your Hang 10 shorts and your Nikes, no one's really going to believe you because you sound like you're full of shit because you were
Right.
having this,
Partying in a
something
nightclub in
Venice.
Venice.
Right. I told that one of those stories to my friends in the Navy, my bosses. Now they're my friends. They were my bosses then. But anyways, they're like, man, you're so full of hot air, dude. Stop with these stories. I'm like, oh, okay. You thought I just grew up in Ohio with the skateboard and watching Starsky and Hutch. Nah, we were doing so much more. We were at discos. We were doing everything you're waiting to do.
Right. We were doing it.
So we were doing everything everyone was waiting to do when they either hit college or turned 21 as 15, 16, 14, years old, right? And then later, we get a global view. We get to get outside of America and then go back to America. And we get to have people from all 50 states bring us their intel and share us what it's like in Kentucky or, Mississippi or Texas or California or Utah. We get to see what it was like from that perspective, what style, what music, what's hip. And all of a sudden you're getting a global reach, a helicopter view compared to a guy looking out of a keyhole.
Right.
Saying that's how I see the world. Right. So that's my breakdown of the whole analysis and why we know what we know.
Well, I think also one is because of the setting. So you're somewhere where you're getting to see the history, like you said, instead of just looking at a history book. The other is I think that you couldn't escape because of the smaller skies. Because like when I first got there, I wasn't that good of a student. I was smart when I was younger, which is how I got to be 16 and a senior. But I wasn't that good of a student. And Mr. Crowley, he taught, physics and the IT stuff. And I was sitting there and he's like, son, you're not applying yourself. He goes, and it just really, it's like you couldn't hide anymore. And so I think the teachers was like, they would push you to do better. And then I think then you had, because we had a lot of good students, Teddy he wanted to be that, the jock and the prom king, but Teddy was very, very smart. Jim Greenwell, very, very smart. So you had this, and so then you started hanging out with these. Ron Tamura was another one, very, very smart. And so then it's like, hey, I'm hanging out with these guys. I need to apply myself. So I think because of the settings that you ran around with, but then the teachers got to know you. It just wasn't, okay, you're one of like 800 kids in this school. You're one of like, 120 that I may have to see, but chances are I'm going to see 30. I think the teachers could engage you more and push you to be better. Because if I wouldn't have went to Vicenza, that would mean my whole life would have been different. But I think Mr. Crowley having that tough conversation with me, and then hanging out with Teddy and Jim and them that were really, really smart and I wasn't. And then your dad, I think it just catapulted, not that I'm super successful, but I'm in a lot better place than where I would have been without that setting.
You'd probably be carving wooden seagulls, selling them over by the beach over here.
Yeah, well, and I don't have that. I don't have that skill set, so I would probably be the guy picking up the cans, trying to get them to the recycling center.
Yeah, that's how it works. But I mean, it does help you. You get confidence. You get confidence from that.
Yeah.
And my brother and other people have talked on the podcast about confidence. So everybody there get to play in a sports team, whether they were at the highest level or not. Right. Some people took it to college, like you and Bonamago and a few other people. This Tree went and played in college. So they were able to take it to the next tier. Most people were not going to go become college athletes from Vicenza because we didn't have the regular competition level or the program. But you would go there. If you couldn't get on the football team, you're on the volleyball team. If you couldn't get on the volleyball team, you're on the cross country team. If you couldn't get on the cross country team, you're on the wrestling team. If you're not on the wrestling team, you're on the basketball team. Or you're on the track team. So you had options, and most people could get on the team or a club like the band or something. So you got the experience where other high schools in the States, you might not make the cut. Right. You might not be, be playing all these sports. You want to be on a football team and show up for practice. Just do practice. You're on the team, right? That's how it was.
And I really believe that it helps being a part of that sports. I mean, you're working out, you're committed, you're learning, you're growing. I think it makes you better. And then um, and again, your dad was a catalyst for that because you had PE, and so you would have PE, and then he would have open stuff, and he's pulling people like, hey, you need to do this here, you need to do this here, and everybody liked him. So okay, I think that all helped, but then it helps you later in life of being competitive and working out, and
I think
you
the
get knocked down.
baseball. I think the baseball is the tie-in with you and him.
Yeah,
I think he saw some of you, so him himself and you, and that's why he gave you that extra juice. And
right.
that's where it came. So yeah, that's why you looked me up. Like you mentioned, like you were close with 3 or 4 people, but I can name 20, 40 people because I lived there from 72 to 87.
Right.
So I knew groups of kids, some a couple years younger, some multiple years older, so I knew them all. And because I was in every episode.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's how it was. Like I remembered you, and you're like, yeah. But my dad must have made such a deep impression because, yeah, you and he had that bond on sports, and then you applied that to life, and I can see it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Why you're doing what you do. Plus, you're in Europe, so you're used to traveling internationally. You get to do stuff that, like the other Harlan Calhoun that Teddy called, he probably had no motivation to go to Russia or to Poland or anything, right?
Right.
Right. That's
But
pretty
it was
wild.
just a neat experience, a neat school. And then again, I left after football season, went to Wiesbaden, played basketball there, ran track, and then was able to come back and actually graduate from Vicenza. So everybody, and then the yearbook, and I don't know who did this, but like the senior year yearbook, I had gotten it shipped to me, and it already had someone had taken it around and had people sign it, and it was a neat experience that connection was still there, and so I was able to come back and graduate, and then I think we had a big party out at Teddy Spittle's house that night, and it was just had a great time. So it was a good experience, and I mean, we just had a lot of fun. Everyone just, for the most part, everybody got along with everybody. It was a small knit community, and then the Verona people had to take the train in, so they had
They had a
better
commute.
bonding.
They had an executive level commute, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Kind of like your commute these days.
Right. Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to another city. I used to want to do something like you did, like not necessarily the same profession, but go somewhere where I was always traveling for business. I thought it was like it had sex appeal, like I look cool, I'll be an international sales guy. Then I was flying one day and I saw a guy with like a 9-hour layover in his suit all cracked. Wait,
it happens. It happens.
Right? I go, maybe that's the bad part. Maybe that's why I don't want to do this, That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it happens. But luckily, though, today that you've got the lounges that are so nice. Like you're in LAX, they got showers and sleep rooms, and you can just, for the most part, yeah. There's always that one part where it looks great, and then there's the reality.
Well, I was in Dubai. I was flying Emirates. That was premium, man.
Oh yeah, that's the best airline to fly.
Oh, dude, they're like bringing me old, expensive Cavassier. Don't worry, it's on the house. Like they just give me whatever I want. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I've been in United. This is different.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty groovy. So, I guess now is your time to reconnect with some people because you haven't. You're like.
Yeah, I really haven't. Except for Teddy, Massimo. I've talked to Alyssa some, Tree a couple times. But for the most part, no. I just haven't, like when you said Rosanna Bonamago, her, Tabitha Thomas, Lori Barrymore, none of them, Charles Duffy, none of them. So yeah, it's this year.
Lori Barrymore, I think, was she tall and lean?
She was tall. I went to prom with her our junior year.
Okay.
She was tall.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Yeah, she was tall. I think she was a year behind, maybe. She
Yeah,
might have been. Yeah, I think she might have been a class of '85. And
80,
then
80,
Tabitha Thomas.
yeah.
Yeah, Tabitha Thomas. She was my secret um, cheerleader. They used to put like notes in our lockers and dress our lockers up for football,
Hmm.
um, and then Alyssa. Alyssa, she's in Louisville now.
Yeah.
I think she's a psychiatrist or psychologist or something. Those and Tree lives out there in Louisville.
Tree lives over in Kansas.
Oh, does he? I thought he was out in Louisville.
No, he's there. Maybe he
Oh,
moved at one point. I don't know. Last point of reference.
okay.
He might be coming out this way. So
Oh,
we'll all meet up. I saw Dino on the podcast. I hadn't seen him in 34 years. And he's in Texas. So he was doing good. He looked great, great attitude.
and then there was when I worked at the teen club, there was she was a year before. I think it was '83. Danny, I probably butcher her name. I forgot her name. I forgot her last name. Danny DiCirio.
DiCiccio? DiCiccio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to her brother the other day. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so she worked at the teen club some, and then we would go. And I forgot the guy that his
Vern.
wife was one of the news anchors on AFN.
Okay.
But he was there. We would go on trips and stuff together. So she was always kind of cool to hang out with. And again, she was way out of my league, as most of the girls in Vicenza were way out of my league because I was that young dumb guy.
Well, it's okay. I'm sure some of them are single now, and I'm going to give them your phone number, even if you're married, and they're going to be calling. And I'm sorry if your wife, thinks I was being pushy, but it's just, hey, man. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, there was just a lot of great people to hang out with there.
Yeah, it's been tremendous. I mean, did you do any ski trips or anything else like that?
No, I didn't do any of the ski trips. We did, of the teen club, we took some trips. So like we went out did like a mountain hiking in Salzburg outside of Austria. We went, did some other things. Most of my stuff revolved around sports, just playing sports. Teddy and the group, we would go to Padova and play in this kind of travel basketball thing. And then hanging out with my Italian friends. I never did a ski trip. I wish I would have done that. Of course, I did all the school trips and then all the sports trips, which was always great. But then the little house parties where somebody would have, like you say, you pull up.
Bellagio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually in Bellagio, you get on the green bus and then see what lights are on and what action's happening in front of that. I'll get off on this stop. Yeah, that's
right. Exactly. And then James Craig coordinated a lot of those kind of things. And said, hey, we're all getting together here, or we're getting together here. Or Teddy, he was kind of the maestro. It's like, hey, we're showing up at Ron tomorrow's house, and then his parents are going to be gone for 2.5 hours, and then we got to leave there, and we're going to go over here. And so it was always kind of cool. There was always something for us to get into.
That's pretty cool, man. That's you remember that stuff, that freedom. You get to do stuff as an adult when you were a kid. You get a lot of freedom. More, today it's helicopter parents. The kids don't go outside. They don't go do stuff like we did. We went in the physical world. We get on our bike and ride 10 miles and go to a friend's house or go to a sports game and then walk into the downtown and find some mischief, maybe some beers because nobody carded you. We would get to do things that you come back to the States we're going to take that card back. How old are you? 16? Forget about it. Get over here and join the stamp collecting club. Those privileges are over.
Exactly.
So, where did you go to? You went to school out here in North Carolina?
Yeah, I went to Wingate University.
Okay.
It's a small Division II school.
That's cool. And you just stayed out here. You never thought of moving to any other states? This is a great state. I just moved here, so I'm trying to pick your brain to why should I not want to live here?
Yeah. No, I just so I did that, and I was going to transfer to Virginia Tech, and I did one summer up there and decided, and then they were having a coaching change, and I decided to stay where I was at. So I stayed at Wingate, and then I became a Charlotte police officer. And then when I was doing the State Department stuff, I was traveling a lot. Europe, but I was across the U.S., and I would go to Denver or go to L.A. or go somewhere else. And just seemed like I like this state because the mountains are, especially where I live, the mountains are like 2.5, 3 hours away. They're not, great ski areas, but the tallest mountains east of the Rockies is here in North Carolina, Mount Mitchell. So you've got skiing and hiking and great whitewater rafting, but then you go not to where you live, but if I want to like Wrightsville Beach, that's Oak Island, that's 3.5 hours. So you've got the ocean, the beach, drive a little bit further for you just because of the way that you have to go 6 hours, you're in the Outer Banks. So you got great surf fishing. Then you got the lakes, and it's just, to me, it was just like you got the best of both worlds. You got, now the Atlantic Ocean is not as clear as if you're down in the Gulf and all of that, but the water's a whole lot warmer here than it is on the West Coast.
Oh yeah, where I just came from. Never even used it. Rarely swim. I swam in it a few times. Very rarely.
Right. So here it just kind of gave me, like, if you're an outdoor enthusiast, there's so much variety. You can, be in the mountains and you can go whitewater on a class 4, class 5 rapids. You can go skiing, again, not like what you got out in Vail, but you can go to Sugar Mountain, Beach Mountain, Appalachian Mountain, zip lining. So you've got all of that. And then here in Charlotte, you got Lake Norman and Lake Wiley, which are really big lakes. So water skiing and canoeing, kayaking, whatever you want to do. And then you get that coastal area. Again, good beaches, fishing, restaurants. And so it just gave kind of like, where could you beat that? Right. So if you want the really, really cold, so like in Boone, North Carolina, which is where Appalachian State is, but that's where Sugar Ski, Hawks Nest, all of those. And it's only 2.5 to 3 hours from here, but you've got the snow. You want to go play in the snow and do that, they got it. But and it's usually about 20 degrees cooler than it is here, but I can go down to the coast. So it just, for me, just with all my travels, it's just like, where else would I want to live that kind of gives you all of those, and I love being outdoors. I love being active and doing things. So it kind of gives me kind of the best of both worlds. I get 4 seasons, even though in Charlotte we hardly ever get any snow, we get ice. But if I want to go play in the snow and go, snowboarding or tubing or whatever, it's 3.5 hours away, or it starts to get a little bit warmer. Hey, you know what? I can be out and go deep sea fishing, and in areas where you're going to catch the marlin, and so it gives you a lot of different opportunities. Is why I like it here.
You sold me. I'll buy again. I'll double down. Good sales pitch, man.
But there's other places that I'll go, like, hey, this would be cool, like Portland, Maine. That's a cool town, a good, cool vibe.
I've been there. Portland, Maine. So, that's real nice.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of cool. I think Denver, Colorado's cool. But then I'm like, okay, but I like the ocean too. And yeah, I can get on a plane and go. It just
we scouted Colorado. We go, there's no ocean here. Gotta go. I'm an ex-sailor, dude. I need to be near the ocean.
Right.
And this was a compromise. Florida was too humid.
How'd you pick the Outer Banks? Because I know you were looking at potentially Asheville, but and then you ended up saying forget because you needed that ocean connection.
Ocean. Well, we came here for a little vacation. I ran into my friend from the Navy who lives down the street. We were on the ship together. His girlfriend lives here, so they showed us around. We thought it was nice. We weren't like, oh wow. We weren't like, how you get the buyer that's too impulsive. They're like,
right.
Let's see. So funny enough, my wife's into astrology. She goes, we need to go there. She applies for a job, gets a job in 24 hours in Asheville. So we come out there, we look at Asheville, go, it's cool, but after 50 mosquito bites in 30 minutes, I was like, as beautiful as this all is, I'd have to dip my body in a bathtub full of Raid just to get like maybe 2 or 3 bites. I go, that's
right.
So real pretty Asheville, beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great town.
Came to Outer Banks, and you realize I can be by the humidity, but away from it because there's so much wind here, it just blows it off.
Right.
And so if there's wind movement, it doesn't just settle like in some parts of Florida where it just swamps down on you. Like there's not, a lot of beaches are pretty flat. There's not big waves like there is here. I like
right.
That. So that was it. And, we just looked around and we said, let's just rent a house here. So we rented one for 5 months here, just checking it out. And I'm still shopping. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I was looking at Pinehurst. I was looking at Cornelius area up by Lake Norman near you guys.
Yep.
One of our classmates, Chrissy Clegg, she works for Charlotte Police Department.
Really?
Yeah, and there was another guy that was from our high school that worked for the Charlotte Police Department too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you guys were all
The whole
there.
world didn't even know that.
Well, she's like 5 years younger than you, so yeah, that was probably why, right? You were probably State Department by the time she get into the department. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your career moved, but that's the funny part about it. She's still there now.
Yeah. So where you're at, so the downside of living here is you hit it, the humidity. We got it. And so, and you don't get the relief like you do there with all the wind. And the other thing that really is the pollen every spring is just everything here, because you don't have the wind like you have there. It's just like I just washed my car and I come back out and it's green again. And it's like, but those are the two negative things. Other than that, for me, it ends up, I can go to the mountains and I can be whitewater rafting, or I can be skiing, hiking, zip lining, whatever. And then I could be here on the lakes or the things that we have here. And Charlotte's got, a lot to do, or being down at the coast. Now, I haven't been in the Outer Banks in quite some time, so I may have to come up and visit you.
Oh, for sure. You're welcome to. You're welcome to. We get a big old house here, man. We just rented this thing as a place where probably 3 families would stay.
Oh, wow.
But we get the right price, winter price.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Summer price, ballistic. It's like, over 10 grand a month. But the winter price is a fraction of that. So, yeah.
Yes, if I had a North Carolina beach, I used to go down to Oak Island. It's smaller, not as touristy. And if you want restaurants and bars, you can get a place called Southport.
Well, what's that place in Wilmington that you were saying, that beach near Wilmington, right? Was that one of the beaches?
Well, it's not too far from there. So Wilmington has 2 beaches, Wrightsville Beach and Carolina Beach.
Yeah, I looked at renting a place over by Wrightsville, just right on the water there. That looked like something I would do, possibly. Kind of scope it out. We could buy a house, but we're kind of shopping. We're going to figure it out.
It's the best way to do it.
Well, I mean, there's a saying like that if they get this COVID thing, straighten up a little bit with the vaccines, if that works for people and there's not enough adverse side effects or whatever side of the truth or conspiracy you're living on, people watching the show, I don't know. But let's say that it works. I know that there'll be more listings and more property available, that this limited market, the scarcity market, will be flooded with opportunity, and there'll be lower pricing. I know that's
right.
I can already tell. So there's no impulse like I must buy. I don't have that. I'm like, let's see what it is. You can always
so how's your wife like living out here?
She's
it's a lot different than California.
She's the one that said, let's go. My wife's from Siberia. She's Russian.
Okay.
So she's like, she likes San Francisco more than the East Bay where I lived in the Bay Area, because it would get hot over there where I lived. And over in San Francisco it was cooler. So she liked that. And I said, can you handle humidity? You keep saying North Carolina. She's like, that's where we got to go. So we ended up out here.
And you said yes.
Yeah, I was like, cool, I'll do it. We can have a way better quality of life. Why should I keep objecting to something that's so logical? Because California, I mean, $128,000 a year in San Francisco is poverty.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So most people by American standards are poor compared to people that live in San Francisco. So I'm like, forget that. Forget your $4 gas. Forget, a lot of other expenses. I mean, shoot, I smoke cigarettes. They're half price here. Come on. It's like 10. So, it's like, yeah, man, I'm going to cigarette town. I'm joking, but,
I got a pay raise. I can afford more cigarettes.
More cigarettes and more rent. Just renting and smoking and renting. No, I'm kidding. You get my part. But yeah, we may meet up here. Who would you like to see on the podcast? Rosanna? She said she might come on.
Oh yeah, anybody. It's from that area. Rosanna Bonamago, Tabitha Thomas,
Teddy. Who hasn't been on yet.
Teddy definitely. I mean, Teddy was kind of that. Then you said James Craig. You'd have to get him again because he froze up.
Yeah.
Javier, if you haven't had him.
Dino.
Andre Davis, Charles Duffy.
Yeah.
Massimo May. Massimo was always more private and still is kind of. He's done well for himself. He graduated and then went to University of Maryland at Munich and then went to work. And I think he's been with the same company forever, but he's living in Dallas now. Sean Smith, I hadn't connected with him. He graduated and went right into the Air Force. Me, him, and Massimo used to hang around a lot. And Young Soo Nun, I don't remember if you remember him.
He's in Colorado.
Oh, is he really?
He was living near me, but he had some things going on in California, like his business was struggling, so he moved there, and he's doing well now. He's in I think he's in Denver or somewhere in Colorado.
Oh wow, didn't know that. And I go to Denver a lot, so yeah. Anybody that you can have on, it just brings back those memories and those connections, and
then you'll end up meeting them in person through work. That's what Barry was talking about doing. Barry's done that because he's a pilot. You're a passenger, so you're both traveling. Doesn't matter, right? So you're going places, and there's somebody to see in every town, and it makes it that much more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it helps us with our memory as we get older. Because
Lord, I need that.
we need that stuff, man. Oh my gosh, this has been a great episode. Now more people.
I appreciate you reaching out and making this happen. Sorry, we've had to push it down the road a few times, but it's been great.